person sent me. Why are they sending me this? And I'm like, well, we just do that. Sometimes we get mailing lists and we do that. Yeah. But I want to come by and pick that up from you because I want to see what the competition's doing, right? Yeah. So I always tell my clients, hey,
We are back with another episode of Cut to the Chase, and today I have a very special guest, a friend of mine for the last over decade, currently owns a real estate company, runs an entire real estate team, and she is simply crushing it. So we are going to talk for a few minutes here, and why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Brandy?
I'm Brandy Brown. I'm the broker owner at Realty Mountain View, and has it really been a decade?
It's since before my daughter was born. Yeah. Wow. And so, we've known each other for quite some time. Yeah.
Long time. It doesn't feel that long.
It doesn't. It's nice. You know, some relationships feel like you know them a day and you're just like, oh, this is exhausting. Right. I've known you 10 years. It feels like it's still a fresh relationship. Right, yep. So that works out very good. So, I wanted to jump in and talk to you today about a few things. I wanted to ask, for a real estate agent, you manage a team. Right. What does it take? And by the way, we're going to jump into some of these questions as we go along. Okay. But I'm going to give you kind of a preview. I want you to think about what does it take to succeed in real estate right now? Right. Like what, if you had to train somebody right now who's brand new, what would it take to succeed in real estate? What mindset does it take to succeed in real estate? Because we're here in Colorado Springs, right? And it's different than, say, if you were in the middle of Kansas or in Texas or Montana. So we're going to focus right now today in Colorado Springs, the way the market is. We have a big veteran population here. We have most people are not natives here. Right. So you have a different type here than you would have in a lot of other areas. But before we do that, I want to ask you a couple questions just so I get to know Brandy Brown and everybody who listens gets to know Brandy Brown. Okay. You ready for this? Mm-hmm. Are you a veteran?
I am a veteran.
You are a veteran.
U.S. Army, yep.
U.S. Army. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. What did you do in the Army? If you don't mind. Now, if this is top secret, I do not want to be killed in my sleep. So go ahead and just tell me what you've done.
Is anything secret in the Army?
No.
So I was military police for 6 years.
Military police.
Yeah. 4'11", military police, yeah.
And it's almost like, if you think about it, like a honey badger doesn't care that it's smaller than a lion. Right. It's going to fight that lion. Right. Yeah. So were you the honey badger of MPs?
I guess so. That would be it. Yeah,
you were the honey badger of MPs. Okay, cool. Any crazy situations you want to tell us about before we get going?
No,
keep that to yourself.
Yeah, and even if it was like the people that are in the Army now and what they have to go through is a lot different than what I experienced. I got out right after 9/11, so I didn't go through the decades of deployments and actual hostile war situations that these people now, or that have been in the military for the last 20 years, have experienced. So it's very different. I was like the peacetime. So it was
after what did they call it? Not Iraqi freedom. Before Iraqi freedom, it was in the early 90s, right? So it was after that. Yeah. But it was before 9/11. Yeah.
Well, I got out right after 9/11, so I never had to deploy.
Okay. Wow.
I deployed, yes, but those were peacekeeping missions. I deployed to Panama. Yeah. For a peacekeeping mission, sat on the beach on our days off and stuff. And we did a lot. I don't discredit that. We did a lot of work there and turning back over the canal and the training that we did.
But it wasn't hostile
threat of I might not survive this.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's a very humble approach.
Yeah, it's a different mindset, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And the current veterans that come back. Again, different mindset they have to have going and a different mindset they have when they come back, right? It's like coming back from Nam and all of a sudden it's, you got some stuff you got to deal with.
Right. And I think that the military learned a lot from that situation in Vietnam and how they treated the servicemen and women coming back from that.
I mean, after they got home?
Yeah. And then, I think our military now is a lot more educated on their benefits and what they get out of their time in service than even I was. So I think we learned a lot from the last 20 years of wartime experience and what our service members need and what their families' needs are.
That's interesting. It sounds like you have a very intimate knowledge of this. And I find it interesting that you would say that they have more knowledge right now on what's available to them.
Right.
As opposed to just kind of like, well, I'm out of the service.
Right.
Hope it works out.
Right.
You know, it's...
Yeah, they do a lot of, the military does a lot of outbriefing and transitioning soldiers out.
Yeah.
And they have a lot more programs and abilities, like things I didn't know about, that you can do internships and different things. And
you're like, what the heck?
they educate you on your benefits. And, you know, when I first started in real estate, veterans didn't understand the VA loan. And we did a radio show once where we talked all about the VA loan process, and people just didn't understand it. And in real time, we're educating our military a lot better on what their benefits are.
Do you think that has to do with the military's efforts, or do you think it has to do more with the internet?
I think it has to do with a community effort. Like, we have different services here because, and I think that's because we do have 5 installations here of different branches of service. So I think the community does a better job of educating our veterans. Our professional community, of course, does.
Yeah.
And then the knowledge that they're able to learn getting out of service and transitioning out, plus the internet, obviously,
do you think
everything's real time.
Do you think real estate agents are more knowledgeable now on VA, veteran PCS, veteran loans, veterans looking to buy their first house, second house, expanded eligibility? Do you think they're more knowledgeable now than when you first started real estate?
I think yes, but I've always been a military community too. If you go outside of the military community, it's very different. And then there's even lenders, and they don't know VA. You know, I have people call me from rural areas, and I'm like, so once upon a time, this guy told me about VA 26-7. His name's Tim Chase. Really good lender, but you should actually download this and print this handbook and have it, because you might be able to teach a lender something or another, or vice versa.
Shockingly, it has a lot of details, but still amazingly still ambiguous in a lot of areas where you're well, there's a lot of interpretation to go on here, right?
Well, we practice it every day, right?
Yeah.
So we're probably more well-versed.
Yeah.
We pay attention to the changes that are coming down from VA, that come down to guidelines, that come down to lending. So I think that also plays a huge role in it. We're more in tune with it because we are in such a high concentration of military population.
So, with your family, did you get PCS'd here to Colorado Springs, or how did you get to Colorado Springs?
Yep, my ex-husband got PCS'd here, and so
was he Army as well?
He was, yeah.
Okay.
So we came here in 2011, and
when did
been here ever since.
And so your whole family was basically raised here.
Yes, I had teenagers when we moved. I had 2 teenagers when we moved here. My younger children. I have 3 Widefield High School graduates, by the way.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my daughter is at Mesa Ridge. So I enveloped myself in the community immediately.
Yep.
And I really feel strongly about the area. And so really, honestly, that's why we stayed.
Okay. So when you moved here to Colorado Springs, and so I don't know everywhere, where'd you live? Like, where'd you grow up?
Upstate New York.
Upstate New York. That's where the feist comes in.
It is.
That's wondering where that came in. When you moved to Colorado Springs, and I understand this was, a long time ago, but was there anything in particular about our community in Colorado? I'm not talking about the military community necessarily, just in general. What was like the biggest surprise to you when you moved to Colorado Springs? Like what was different than you thought it would be?
Well, everybody that you talk to when you say you get assignment to Colorado, they're like, oh, that's one of the best places to live, the best duty assignment.
Oh, nice.
What I thought was crazy to me is there was like this Colorado Springs proper, but then there was like all these other areas outside of Colorado Springs proper where they were just putting up a random subdivision like mine that I live in. So that was kind of surprising to me that it wasn't like all really concentrated. It was very spread out for being the city. So we're this big little city because everybody kind of knows each other too. So it's very strange.
It's weird.
Like, you just run into people and you're like, oh, I know you. But how do I know you? Because we're not like neighbors. We don't hang out or anything. But we're like this big, small community.
Yeah, which is kind of cool, right? Which is a lot different than if you lived in a true small community, which is like where I grew up in Canyon City. Is you knew everybody because everybody lived within a 12-mile radius of you. You know,
how many kids did you graduate with?
There was like 300 or something like that. So
it's actually still a big, small community.
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah.
But
I mean,
yes, everybody knows your name there.
Oh, you knew everybody, and you knew everybody's cousin too.
Right.
And that's just, I mean, you just knew everybody. But in a bigger city like this, when you get 500,000 to 1 million people, you would think that it would be more rare, but it's actually pretty common to go to the grocery store and bump into somebody that who doesn't even live in your community necessarily, or maybe they live a couple miles away.
Right.
It's somebody you haven't seen for a couple of years, and you popped into them, and you run into them. Right.
Yeah, it's a little
great. I run into people like at Lowe's. Right, and like, what are you even doing at this Lowe's in this aisle at this time? Right, like
this Lowe's is the only Lowe's in town that actually has its items that I want.
Exactly. Yeah, it's aisle 31, row 9. Yeah. So I have a couple of things I wanted to ask you. Right. So let's jump into with your family. Are any of them aspiring to be real estate?
No.
Yeah, smart.
I know, right? I was like hoping the doctor. That one of them might, but no.
Okay.
But they are very much educating themselves on the home buying process and the investment process. So I'm very proud of that.
Yes, excellent. So, would you? I mean, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth here, but so if your kids aren't going to be real estate agents, would you consider your team, all the people who work under you, kind of your real estate kids, or your real estate like that's you're teaching them?
Exit Realty Mountain View is my legacy.
Okay.
And regardless of who ends up with Exit Realty Mountain View, that's my legacy. And I wouldn't say that they're my kids, but they're my family. They're
there we go.
My
family.
Brothers,
all right.
My sisters.
Okay, excellent.
But yeah, I want to educate them, and I actually learn from most of them.
Yeah.
In the process. So it makes me a stronger broker owner so that I can keep training the next generation of agents.
So I want to just take a few minutes here and talk about some stuff that you know as a broker owner, right? Things that maybe a new real estate agent wouldn't know, or maybe a real estate agent who's maybe struggling, because as you know, there's 4,000 or 5,000 agents in town, and there's like 1,200 deals last month, right? So there's not a massive, there's a lot of people not doing transactions, and there's a lot of people that are doing transactions. Well, here's an interesting statistic for you. Is I pulled up the last 30 days stats, and they always say 20% of the people do 80% of the production. Well, when I pulled that up, out of I think 1,200 or whatever it was 1,000 when I pulled it up. 680 different agents had conducted a buy-side transaction. So you had like 68% were done all by different agents,
right?
Which was shocking,
right?
So it's like, I feel like it's way more spread out as opposed to just that little, 2 or 3 teams doing everything. Like that's how I feel it used to be. Like maybe 5 years ago, I felt like there was like 5 teams that kind of seemed to do everything. So my question is this: when you have a new real estate agent or any real estate agent in your office, what do you see as probably one of the bigger problems, like activity-wise or non-activity-wise? Like, what do they do that is almost setting up their failure?
Time management.
Ooh, that was a quick answer.
Yeah, because that's going to make or break you in this business. If you can't control your time, you're either always going to be jumping to the next fire, running to the next deal, having it fall out. You have to manage your time. And I believe that our brokers that run brokerages, we don't do a good enough job in teaching our associate brokers time management.
That's fantastic.
What is your structure? What does your day look like? Because if you don't go out hustle every day, you're not going to get business, right?
Yeah.
But if you're squirreling it and doing, 3 hours of surfing Facebook and 2 hours of answering emails, now you just lost 5 hours of your day. And where's your prospecting? You
got 3 hours left, and you still have to dance around other things that are taking your time.
Or you have the agent that gets really excited about that first deal that comes down the pipeline, and they're constantly on fire answering their phone. And something I wish someone would have told me a long time ago, that I'm not anybody's mule and I don't have to workhorse for people. This is my profession, and I need to be professional when I do it, but I also people need to respect me and my time
Yeah.
and what I'm doing. So making appointments with yourself, scheduling your structured family time, and you don't have to be a jerk to your client and say, well, I can't because,
Sure.
I'm busy making dinner for my family, but
How dare you call me at 7:00 on a Thursday?
These are my office working hours.
Yeah.
Set the expectation up front for the client. And then when something goes on fire at 10 p.m., you don't have to answer your phone, because I can tell you your lenders and your title people, they're not doing business at 10 p.m.
Well, and at 10 p.m., here's what I like to share with agents. I share it with our team too, but if something's blowing up at 10 p.m., it's still going to be blowing up at 8 a.m.
Right.
Like nothing's going to happen in that 10-hour span that's going to fix anything.
Right.
Like literally nothing. You might make yourself feel better by blasting out a whole bunch of emails. You're like, oh, whew, I feel better.
Right.
Nothing happened.
So you're still sitting there biting your nails after you've sent out all of those email blasts, and you're the only one not sleeping.
Exactly.
Because everybody else went to bed.
And they're going to get up at 8 and be like, oh, here's something to deal with.
Right.
And I got a clean head, and I'm ready to go for the day.
And you're still mad because they didn't answer their phone at 10 p.m., right?
You wake up at 8, what the heck's going on? Yeah.
And that's the big thing, is setting the expectation and managing your time, and not letting everybody else manage your time for you.
When would you suggest that an agent should build a team, like production-wise?
I don't think I would make a suggestion to anybody to build a team. I think it has to be the individual broker. What do you want? So when you come and interview with my brokerage, it is very much, what are you looking for? Yeah. What are you looking to build? What do you want your future to look like? What's your income goal? Like, do you want to run a company?
Okay.
Do you want to open your own brokerage? Do you want to manage a team? How do you want to do that? So for me, I don't ever recommend you should start a team, but I do tell every broker, and my brokers will attest to it, that I tell every one of them, you should have a transaction coordinator on your first deal.
Okay.
So
again,
to me,
time
you
management.
are building a team by having that piece in place. And then when you get to a level of production where the transaction coordinator is overwhelmed by the amount of business you're giving them, then you add your assistant.
Okay. So you do have a plan, but it's not necessarily for everybody.
It's not written as you should start a team.
Gotcha.
Because in our industry, teams are a buyer's agent and a listing agent, and you're like the rainmaker.
I got the rainmaker.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the misconception of teams in our industry, I think. They don't have to look like that either.
Okay. So you can design your own team.
Right.
Right. So you mentioned what is their goals? So that would lead me to a question for you is, what goals, when you first started, think of when you very first got licensed in real estate, okay? How have your goals changed from then until now?
I'm more stable in what I do. I tried a lot of brokerages.
Yeah.
I did the move around broker for a little while. But I don't feel like I ever got that hand that said, you need to make a plan. It was numbers and production. Here's how many deals you need to close. Here's how you could get there. And I'm a brand new agent, and people are telling me to spend tens of thousands of dollars.
Go buy Zillow ads.
Right.
Go
and
to
at that
Facebook
point,
ads.
I didn't have the partnerships with lenders and title people to say, what am I really building?
Yeah.
So I didn't really start building. I had a license since 2005 because I had one in another state.
Yeah.
I got here and got my license in 2012. Well, I guess it was 2013. But I didn't find a brokerage that actually gave a crap about what I was doing until I found Exit. And then once I found Exit, it was that not based on your production. Yes, you need production because you have income goals and you have things you want to do for your family, but it was centered around those things. Because, like Simon Sinek says, what is your why?
Yeah.
And I know people think that's bull crap, but I believe that's true.
People
you have to know what you want in order to put a plan in place.
The only reason people think that's bull crap is because it's become so common to say.
Right.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, it wasn't common to say.
Right.
I mean, Tony Robbins has been saying that since the 90s. Right.
Right.
So if you can define that, it's a very big deal. Right. So here's a quick example. And on my team, we were talking yesterday about doing our calls. So like Wednesdays, we do database calls as an example. And we call A's and B's on this week. On Wednesday, next week we call C and D. Next week we call E and F. Right. So whoever their last name is. That way we touch all clients 4 times a year. Okay. And we're calling that. And I asked our team, well, what what if you don't feel like making your calls? Like, how do you deal with that? And one person brought up, they said, and this goes to your, like, what's your why, right? Again, so I got to think of a different way to say that because it has become so just
generic,
silly. You know what I mean? Like, oh, my why is to change the world, right? Whatever your, but if you truly have your why. So this is an interesting way that they said this. They said, you have to define, and this is a loan officer telling me this yesterday, you have to define what you want. And you have to, how did she say it? You have to define who else is going to benefit from your hard work other than you. So as an example, what do I want to achieve? What can a meaning achieve for somebody else? Not for myself. Take me out of the equation. And one person said, well, I want to help my mom retire. And that's what I want to do. I want her to stop working so hard. And maybe it's, I want to get my child first generation into college. Like outside of you, who benefits from this work you're doing today? And then when you don't feel like making your calls and you don't feel like doing what you need to do that day in your time block, right? If you don't do that, what you do is you have a promise with yourself. I will pick up the phone and I will call that person who's supposed to benefit from my work. I'm not going to tell them I'm not doing it. I'm just going to call them. I'm going to talk to them and then refresh why I'm doing this. And then I jump right back in and say, these calls are not hard. These database calls aren't hard. Well, my follow-up isn't hard. I thought that was absolute gold, right?
That is pretty gold, because I would have been like, pick up the phone and call that person and tell them why you suck today.
Really? Hey, Mom, just want to tell you you're working another 2 years because I refuse to make my calls. Right? Yeah.
And it is hard. Sometimes we're human. You don't. I don't always want to pick up that phone and call anybody, but I can't preach it and then not do it.
Yeah.
Either,
well, and that's perfect. That's perfect. You can't be a true leader if you're afraid to get in the trenches.
Right.
You cannot ask anybody on your team to do something you either haven't done, you're not willing to do, you're not currently doing.
Right.
You have to have that. Right. That's the only way to truly lead.
Yeah. And I tell my team, I hate door knocking, I hate cold calling, I hate all of those things.
Yeah.
But if that's in your plan and you want to do it, let's do it. I'll sit down and do it with you. We'll do it together.
Yeah,
I think if you do that, it makes you feel better too, because you've got somebody else there with you in the same trench.
Yeah,
basically.
Exactly. It's like, hey, I got my brother in arms over here. Right. Like we're gonna do this together.
So even if you do get 100 no's, at least you're laughing at the other person that also got all those no's too. And then when you get that one yes, you can celebrate it a lot harder if you got somebody sitting right there to celebrate it with you.
Okay, ready for this one? I love this question, and I am always shocked by the answer. If you had to start your real estate career in a brand new city today, you don't know anybody. You've never been to this city before. You just moved here yesterday. Today's Wednesday. Today's your first day. You just got back licensed again. What activity would you do that is like a non-negotiable that I have to do in order to win in this new city, to build my business?
Oh, you got to find the people in the city that are already doing it.
What do you mean?
I got to find the brokerage.
Okay.
I got to find the lender.
Okay.
I got to find the title company or attorney that's doing the deal. And I have to introduce myself to them first.
Okay. That's the first thing you do. And what does that benefit you?
They're going to help me grow.
Okay.
They're going to teach me the city. They're going to teach me how the industry is done in their city.
Which is going to be different than wherever you came from.
Right. Yeah. Pretty much. Right.
Yeah.
So they're going to teach me all of those things. And you partner with the right people there, you're going to grow that business.
Okay.
Because you're going to back and forth partnerships, right?
Yeah. And then now
I'm going to probably get on every Facebook group that I can.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to use whatever system that either my brokerage has in place or
system, meaning a CRM.
Website.
Yep.
I'm a big proponent of having your own website and your CRM LinkedIn somewhere.
Yeah.
And if you can take that and move it into a new city and start pushing out other people's listings and stuff, I think that you can quickly build.
How do you feel about going to other agents' open houses for them that maybe don't even work in your brokerage? Or would you be pro that or against that?
I do not allow outside brokers that aren't in our brokerage to host our open houses.
To host your open houses.
And we don't host them outside of Exit.
I've heard different opinions on that.
I don't because of policy procedure, and somebody says or does the wrong thing while they're representing a home that one of my brokers has listed.
Okay.
What's my liability? And maybe there isn't, but I'm not willing to take the what if.
Gotcha. So if somebody breaks in and steals something or something, and you're the one that's actually got my house listed.
Plus, we're getting paid to work for our clients. We should be working for our clients. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Okay. So, kind of a last question here that I have that I would personally find very insightful. If you could be a loan officer for 1 week, what would you change on how on how you do your business? What would you do different than what you see loan officers doing now?
Oh, I would never want to do what you all do.
You would quit.
I would probably quit. Yeah. Or I'd get fired fast.
That's funny.
There's nothing like, I think in our industry as a whole, lenders, agents, everybody, communication is key. Yeah. Effective communicators do business. People that can't communicate, they might be able to produce a loan or sell a brokerage or sell a house, but they're not growing anything.
Gotcha. They're just sustaining. They're going through the motions, basically.
So, I want to tie myself to the people that do the same things I do and think the same way I do. Time blocking, time management, calling their client, making me understand the process. So that would be the one thing I would probably say. I want to know what your process is. Okay. When are you going to follow up with the client? How often are you touching the client? We go under contract. What's your process? How often would I expect to hear from you? Okay. What's happening throughout that process?
So you're not just out in the dark wondering
I want to align. We're partnering and I'm putting my name on you. You're putting yours on me. Yeah. Then it has to be a full-on partnership. So that's the one thing I would say I would change. I would make sure that every lender understands that. I want to know. I want to be in the know. As the broker. I think that some people think there's a disconnect between us, lenders and brokers, that we don't effectively communicate with each other. Yep. I'm going to help you put out the fire. And I know there's laws for you all that are in place that you can't share certain things with me about the client. And I get all of that, and I'm okay with that. But what do you need? Like, if you're not getting docs from a client, I want to know, because I'm the one that's going to go get in their face about getting you those docs.
Johnny, where's he tells me you don't got pay stubs. Come on, you want to close.
You get to be the hero and fund the money and close the deal, and I'm going to play bad cop to make sure that you get all your stuff.
Dude, you're going to lose your earnest money and not get the house. Get the stuff over there, right? I kind of actually just came up with another question or two for you. So I was going to stop at that, but what activity? Let's take time blocking out. What activity do you say is your most fruitful as being a real estate agent? Like what do you do that's the number one activity that you feel helps you right now?
I think you need to have a niche and know your niche, or niche, however you feel like saying it.
Give me an example of
I'm a veteran. I am a veteran. Everybody in town knows that I'm a veteran. Yep. And I think that helps me build relationships. Because there's this unwritten trust between us as vets. Yeah. So it just is. Yeah. And I'm not talking about an MRP designation. That's easy to get. I'm talking about.
You didn't go to a class and pay $200 a year. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then my other thing, I'm on a different level because I'm not, it's not about production for me. Like, I love doing real estate and producing, but I'm also the broker owner of our company, right?
Can run the whole business.
My sole goal is to grow that brokerage. Yep. And make it one of the top 5 in the industry, right? Yep. So for me, it's finding the agents and the ones that are lulling in production, or they're not happy, or they're not doing deals, and saying, what do you need? And educating community. So most of my business is repeat and referral. Any agent business that I do is repeat and referral. Yeah. So
find that niche. Find that niche and stick with it.
No, I'm not out just random throwing stuff at the air and making sure, but I contribute a lot of that success to Brian Buffini.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I know quite a few agents in town that use Buffini. And I've gone through as many coaching things as I can. I mean, just as a loan officer, I still want to know what you guys do. So I've actually gone through quite a few different coaching platforms, and Buffini was interesting because it is very structured. It is. It's not like a lot of feelings and social media posts and hope for the best. It's like really structured. Like, are you doing your mailers? I'm on your mailing list, by the way. Are you doing your mailers? Are you doing your phone calls? Are you doing your database follow-ups?
Right. Are you popping by people and actually letting them know that you truly care about them? And even after the deal is done, because, people are like, I can't remember my agent's name that sold me my house.
Isn't that crazy?
There's 5,000 of us in the city. So no, it's really not that crazy, because a lot of agents don't do this. They don't.
Well, that's the crazy part.
They're not growing their business. They're just sticking stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks.
To me, that is the crazy part, because if there's 5,000 of them, first off, you have the opportunity for your client to know you, right? And nobody else, they're not even following up with their own clients. They're probably not going to follow up with yours. Right. So, we have this thing on our computer screens at the bottom of all the computer screens in our office. It says, what would my competition not want me to do today? And part of that is, let's stay in contact with our database. So there's this guy in Arizona, and I took his real estate training thing as well. I think I've told you about him in years past. His name's Joshua Smith, right?
Yep.
Okay. And one thing that he had, which I don't know if he still teaches this. This is 6-7 years ago that I looked at his stuff. He had this thing called Steal a Client program. Did you ever hear about that?
No.
Okay,
but now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I'm going to probably butcher this a little bit, but this is how I remember it. Is he has a listing, right? You do, and his thought on this is, you're not going to follow up with your client anyway, so I'm justified in doing what I'm about to do. Okay, I know you're not going to. 80% of real estate agents don't, or whatever that percentage is, right? So he has a listing. He sells the listing. Everything goes good. Everybody's happy. He pops back by the house, and he does this, within 30 days of closing, whatever, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 30 days, whatever. And he brings a gift to the people who bought the house. And he says, hey, my name's Tim Chase. I sold you, I was actually the listing agent on this house. And I really just want to check in with you and your family. Like, we take great pride in how we do our work. And we want to make sure, we don't want to just sell things and let it be. Has everything gone okay? Do you have questions? Did you get the sprinkler system figured out? And I know the mail's a little goofy in this part of the town, but did you get that? Do you have any questions at all? Can I go back to my seller? Anything you want, right? Are you anything?
Yeah.
And they say, well, I got this or that. Okay, well, he answers a few questions. Well, look, I brought you and your family a gift. Thank you for doing business with us. It's been fantastic. By the way, if I could just get some information from you really quickly, and then I'm going to get with my seller and we'll get you, whatever. Yeah. And then he adds them to his database, and then he starts dripping on them. He said that he has gotten, and this is crazy to me, he's gotten people that call him for business thinking that he was their agent. 4 years ago, because their agent never followed up.
Right.
What they know is he showed up at the house.
He showed up,
and he followed up.
Right.
And once a quarter, they're getting a call, or they're getting, whatever it is. And I just thought that was I was like, first off, I can see how a lot of agents, because of whatever your moral compass is on this, right? A lot of agents would say, oh, I would never do that. I don't feel right about it. To me, you're doing a disservice by not following up with the people.
Sure.
If you know the other person's not going to, why wouldn't you do it?
Right.
Right. I thought it was fantastic.
I think that's fantastic too. I hope that people listening will take that into consideration as a business model. Once that deal's closed, there's no more contracts. So it's not like you're doing anything immoral, unethical. I would caveat that with...
I figured you would.
There are some agents in this town that I want to do I want them on the other side of every deal. If they're not sitting in my office hanging their license...
Because they're good?
Because they're that good.
Really? Okay.
So, there's some people I would close a deal with and I would never, and maybe I would do something like, hey, I was a listing agent and your agent was so-and-so, and, so... Just to remind them, your agent was so-and-so, and I'm in the community again, because typically when I list one, I end up listing more in that same community, right? Yeah. So, That's a fantastic business plan. Man, I really hope some people pay attention to that. What was his name?
Joshua Smith.
Joshua Smith.
Yeah. He has GSD mode, and you can watch he does his podcasts once a week, something like that. But it's his training I went through. It had to be 6, 7 years, 8 years ago, something like that. And that was one of the training models was the steal a client.
Well, and I also think if your clients, if you as an agent that represented that client is doing what you're supposed to, whether it's following what Joshua Smith does or Buffini or Ninja. I have a couple of agents in my office that do Ninja. If you're following up with those clients, when they see somebody else comes to their house, their response is, I already have a real estate broker, you know?
Yeah.
And they can name who you are.
And even if I start to mail you something, I know your address, I know your name, I just did a deal well on the other side, right? Even if I start to mail you stuff, if your agent is doing their follow-up properly, it won't, like, I'm not going to have any impact on it. Because your agent's doing what they're supposed to do.
Or, like, I have some clients that'll screenshot me what they got in the mail, and they're like, Brandy, hey, look what this person sent me. Why are they sending me this? And I'm like, well, we just do that. Sometimes we get mailing lists, and we do that. Yeah. But I want to come by and pick that up from you because I want to see what the competition's doing, right? Yeah. So I always tell my clients, hey, if you get stuff in the mail from other brokers, I want to know what my competition's doing. So save that for me.
Would you feel comfortable naming 2 or 3 people that you love having on the other side of a transaction?
Yeah, Marissa Lindsay.
Okay.
Bree. Put me on the spot, Tim. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Bree. We just closed a deal last week, and it was freaking fantastic.
Nice.
I can't remember her last name. God, Bree, I'm sorry. Anybody in my office.
Yeah,
because
okay.
I pretty much trained them all.
Yeah.
And Christine Calendar.
Okay, cool. So these people that you do a transaction with, this is coming from a lending standpoint. Like I know when I see a real estate agent, like certain real estate agents, contracts come over, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a good deal.
Yeah. And
then I see other ones, I'm like, this is gonna be a trainer. It doesn't matter how good this can go. It's somehow drama's gonna get in here somewhere. It's gonna leak in, right? And if it's not leaking in, they're gonna kick a hole in it and make sure drama gets in. But these ones that we deal with that are really good, what I like about them from a lending standpoint is, you know, something's going to happen in real estate. It could be a contract issue. It could be a lending issue. It could be an appraisal issue, an inspection issue. It could be like 1,000 different things, right? So something's going to happen on most deals. And so for me, if I can call the buyer's agent and I can call the listing agent, and I can say, here's the situation, you know, appraisal came in 10,000, you know, below value or whatever. They don't freak out. Like that to me is huge. They're like,
I always freak out.
Like, ah, crap.
Tidewatered again.
Yeah. Well, but see, here's the thing: is when that tidewater comes through, right? Do I have agents that are able to say,
yeah,
okay, cool. So that's the facts. I'm a professional. I'm going to deal with this,
right?
As opposed to, oh my gosh, I don't know what am I. They just started. Their heads are spinning. So to me, it's almost like if they can just handle themselves really good. Because here's what I found is when they freak out, guess who the next person to freak out is? Their client.
Right.
If it's a buyer's agent, now my client's freaking out.
Right.
I'm like, man, it's not, like, it's just a thing. You do enough business, you understand this stuff happens all the time. How do we handle it?
Yeah,
right?
my fear is I'll roll up on a listing, you know, and most of the time I don't pay attention to the MLS. I schedule the address and showing time, and I go get the instructions and I show it, right? I'm really not, I'm not paying attention to that MLS.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't even know what I'm going to get paid until it's almost time for closing because I just don't.
Is it a 3.2? Is it a 2.0? Right. Is it,
But then I roll up to the house and I see, like, a certain sign in the yard, like Mary Bigar or somebody in the yard. I'm like, yes, please pick this house. Please pick this house. Yes,
because I want to deal with that other agent. I
want to work with that other broker. I know how they work. I know how they're structured. I know how they conduct themselves because they're in the community and they show you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, thank God this person's name is on this
thing. So because now you're gonna deliver a great experience to your client, and you know no matter what happens, the experience is going to be okay. Yeah. And you're gonna do everything you can to deliver it, and nobody's gonna try to ruin that experience. Right. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Brandy. Thanks for being here. Oh, I have something for you. Ready for this?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. This is your official I Love Real Estate T-shirt.
Sweet. Thank you.
So,
7191.
Did I brand myself on there? Okay.
That's fantastic. I love it.
So now, whether you wear it to a baseball game, Maybe you wear it as a painting shirt, or you just be awesome and wear it out in public, right? And just say, bam, I love real estate. And here's the funny thing. You're going to get attention from that. I'm going to tell you a funny story, okay? I have one that says I love mortgages. I'm on a mountain bike ride. It's like a year ago. And I'm on a mountain bike ride by my house. And I'm riding, and there's this huge group of like this. It was almost like a female riding group, but it was like for younger, like maybe high school age girls. And then there was 2 or 3, maybe 4 group leaders, like instructors that were like leading the ride. And then you always have, whenever you do a group with kids, you always have like somebody on a bike behind everybody to make sure there's nobody gets a flat tire or they're left behind. So I'm riding up and I'm catching the tail end of this group, and they're going down in little chunks, 4 or 5 at a time, down this little kind of technical area. And I pull up and I'm like, man, I got to wait for these people because I don't want to like be in the middle of them and I don't want to cut them off. And so I just kind of wait for a second. This lady turns around and she has this really like thick, like almost like Eastern European accent, right? She looks at me. I said, hey, how you guys doing? She looks at me, kind of smiles, and she looks at my shirt. She's like, you love mortgages? I said, why, yes, I do. I should kill you. I said, really? You should kill me because I love mortgages. She's like, nobody loves mortgages. I was like, well, what are you going to do? So if nothing else, you will get attention. I've had 4 or 5 people make comments on it. So, well, thank you very much, Brandy.
Thank you
great
for
pleasure.
having me. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right.